How's it going, guys? How all you are doing? Welcome to a brand new video tutorial from Udemy. Today we're going to go ahead or keep on with our series making a blockchain on Nodejs. So this is the second tutorial on the series of creating a simple blockchain, a basic one, and understanding how actually blockchains works. So yeah, the second tutorial in the series where we're just going to take the code that we have created last time, the blockchain code creation workflow that we have created in the last video tutorial, and make it a little bit more advanced. We add some database functionalities to it and make it look absolutely fine. So here's the code that we have created in the last video tutorial. It was a very simple and just very nifty in here, just very basic, as you can see, with a blockchain class and everything. In the main.js, just have like a custom declaration of a valid proof to check and a proof of work to make sure the block is valid before adding it to the chain and all different things. But this is a little bit outdated, and we've got to need to make it look a little bit more advanced than it looks. And also we're gonna just go ahead and create or add the database Mongodb support for this blockchain to work alongside Mongodb, saving the chain on the Mongodb, and all the different things that you can probably think of. So let's just go ahead and start by the blockchain. As you can see in here that we have created that. If you haven't already, make sure to go ahead and check out the first tutorial. Make sure to go through the first tutorial, understand what we did, and actually you can grab in the code from the GitHub repository down there, or you can just go into the website and read the written tutorial and grab and understand what the code actually does and how we created it, and just by following along the tutorial. So let's go ahead and do this. First things first, let's just go with installing the required modules for this one. So first things, let's go ahead and install the Mongoose. The Mongoose is probably the client wrapper for the MongoDB in order to be able to connect the MongoDB server that you're going to run on our local machine right over here. We're gonna also need the Shulk. The Shulk is just like a quick module to let you color the lines or add background colors or custom colors to the lines on the console, probably just to make it look a little bit better. And I think this is all we're gonna need to do. And actually make sure to go ahead and get the object hash if you haven't already. The last video tutorial we have already installed, as you can see in here, that we already require the object hash. And this is it. And make sure to save it as a real dependency. So I did all the different things in here back in the scenes or behind the scenes probably. And yeah, this is all you're gonna need to do. Also, I just want to mention that I have a full course series about MongoDB from getting started from the basic to an advanced usage. So if you're not familiar with MongoDB already, go ahead and watch the series. You're gonna find the link in the description below or on my website. Just search for it, you're gonna find it, and make sure to watch it and come back in here and continue watching the blockchain. So here for the blockchain, what we're gonna need to do is create a new file. Probably just I'm gonna call it in here is a validator. So this validator validator.js is gonna be allowing us to use the proof of work and the valid proof in a better way rather than just declaring it in here. I'm gonna include it right into whenever we try to add a new block. We're first gonna check if the block is valid. If it is valid, we're just gonna move along and add the block into the chain. Otherwise, we're just gonna exit and we're not going to let the user add the non-valid block. So for this one, let's go ahead and export two functions. I'm going to say export dot valid proof, and it's going to be actually a function as the first one. So remember this one. So just going to check this one, and easily I'm just going to copy this one and just passing in the proof and stuff like this. So yeah, this is all I'm going to need to do. And obviously for the proof of work, I'm just going to copy paste this and just add a function for it, just to make it look tidy up and more useful for us actually. And well, this is going to be proof of work. I can't quite type. It's gonna be a function again, and a row function. I'm just gonna paste this in. It takes nothing rather than nothing. So, and obviously returns the proof if it is valid or not. And obviously here the valid proof, it checks, it returns true or false whether the proof is valid or not, just by also constantly log that to make sure that everything is working pretty much fine. Now, under the main.js, let me just go ahead and get rid of all of those because we have already got them over there. And as you can see, we've got the proof of work equals proof. We can add a new transaction, we can get the previous hash, and we can add it over here. Let me just go ahead and get rid of that because this is a little bit ugly and we don't want this anymore. So I'm just going to get rid of it. And also, as you can see, the proof of work in here, I'm just going to copy it really quickly and go to the blockchain and add it right over here. So yeah, as you can see, it's a proof, but I'm going to go ahead and call it const. And instead of a proof, I'm going to call it the target hash, because on a blockchain theory, or like on a real blockchain scene, it's called a target hash instead of a proof or something. So I'm just going to call it target hash to match everything, and you can probably understand what we're actually doing over here. Now for the adding block, what we're going to need to do, as you can see here, we add a block, we hash it, but we're not doing any checking. The checking, like the validation process, we were doing it in the main.js. So if the block is valid, I'm just going to call this function or call this method. Otherwise, we're not going to call it and it says, or like message to a user or log to him that the block is not valid whatsoever. So therefore, what we're going to need to do right over here is add this validation process into the add new block. So here, before hashing anything, I'm just going to go ahead like add some validation. So let's just first use the validator.js and check if the proof of work actually works, as we were doing right here. Let me just go ahead and grab that for you back so you can quietly understand what we're doing in here. So if proof of work equals proof, so here we're just gonna generate a custom proof. If that equals proof, we're just gonna add a new transition and add a new block. Simple as that. So here, let's go ahead and include it right over here. I'm gonna say, first things first, totally forgot, let's just go ahead and import the validator. So validator equals require, and we're gonna require it just by calling it the validator. This is like object holding the two functions that are gonna allow us to validate. I'm gonna call validator dot proof of work, and this function equals targets hash. And here, as you can see, the actual proof of work, if not valid proof, it returns that, and so on and so forth. Now here, we're just gonna return the proof without the hashing. So we're just returning the proof like a base number. What we want is just return the actual hash instead of the number. So it's just gonna make it super easier for us. I'm just gonna return hash, and instead of that, obviously I'm gonna need to require that. So let me just go to the blockchain, grab that really quick, and go back and paste it, the hash function thing. I'm just gonna hash the proof and return it, which means I'm just gonna return the ready-made hash without rehashing it and all the different things, to make it simple and easier for us. And this is just for adding another layer of protection. We can just get rid of this because we are already in here checking for the proof of work. As you can probably see, we validate the proof. If it is, we're just gonna return the valid proof. So this is the valid proof already, so we don't really require to recheck it, but it's just doing it for security purposes and making your code more understandable. So you can probably see in here. Now we're gonna need to do a couple of things in here for integrating the actual database. So for the database, I'm gonna go ahead in here and whenever the block is ready and everything, I'm just gonna add it to the instance chain, which is our array over here. So as we were doing, I'm just gonna call the chain.push and push the block. The next thing, I'm gonna add it or save it on the database. And lastly, we're just gonna console log success or something like this, just to let the user that he has mined a new block and he has added to the chain. He can just, get his amount of money as agreed or something like this. So you can probably get that. Now let's go ahead and work for the database part and add the Mongodb integration. So under the SRC, let's go ahead and create a new folder. Well, I'm gonna call this folder database, so you can probably understand that. For the database, I'm gonna add index.js. So this index.js is gonna be responsible for connecting to the database and creating the model, creating or compiling the schema and all the different things. Again, if you're not familiar with MongoDB and how MongoDB actually works with all the schemes, with all the models and controls and stuff, you can probably just go ahead and watch the series because it's really, really important to understand what we're doing over here. Now create another file. I'm going to call this file model.js, which is going to be responsible for holding our schema or the blockchain schema and storing it in the database. So for here, I'm going to go ahead and include the Mongodb thing that we have installed earlier. So I'm just gonna call Mongodb right here. We have already got Mongodb. Now let's go ahead and install the schema. I'll create the schema. I'm gonna create const. So let's go use let over here. I'm gonna create this schema equals the Mongodb. I'm gonna just grab the schema in here. We can easily use it, and here create the blockchain schema. Okay, and I'm gonna say blockchain equals a new. We have to create a new instance of the schema, and for the schema actually it takes an object, and this object is full of what's properties or the actual attributes of the each document on the database. So each blockchain or each block is going to be stored, so the properties of each block. So if we can go back into the blockchain in here, so the same parameters we are passing to when we create a block, they are the same when we need to save it on a database. So we need an index, we need a timestamp, which is a date, or a date number to better say. We need transactions, which is an array of ongoing transactions, which can be null, by the way, and also we need a previous hash, or could be null, obviously. So if you remember that the first block gets added to the chain, it has no previous hash because it's the first block gets added to the chain, which is gonna be the previous hash attribute is gonna be set to null, and so on and so forth. So here, going back in the schema, and I just go ahead and add the first thing. So the index. So the index is going to be an object. It's going to be required. I'm going to say required to true, and I'm going to say, well, this is what we're going to need to do. Or we can add a type, and we can grab the schema type. So I'm going to say schema types dot number. Remember, the index is obviously a number. This is for the index. We're going to need the other thing, which is the timestamp. So timestamp. The timestamp is gonna also an object. It's gonna be required as well. So required gonna be set it to true. Well, I'm gonna say the type of this is gonna be well, let's see, schema dot types. Okay. Dot date. So it's gonna be a date, as you probably remember, and I'm just gonna set a default value for this, so we don't really require setting it. We can just leave it empty, and it's gonna refer to the default value, which is the date dot now. So okay, and we're gonna need two more things for the blockchain. We're gonna need the transactions. So it's going to be an array, obviously, so it's going to be required to true. I'm going to say, well, okay. I'm going to say the type of this one is going to be like schema.types.array. So there is an array type already provided for us. And we're going to need the previous hash. Now for the previous hash, it's not going to be required or something. I'm just going to set required to false, because sometimes, as I've said, for the first block, the previous hash gets set to the actual null. So yeah, so we don't need to set this to require at all, and we can just say okay. So the type of this one is going to obviously be schema dot types, okay, dot string. Simple enough. Now this is for the previous hash. Now I'm gonna need to add a brand new thing, so we can just double check everything that is working fine. I'm gonna need to add the actual database hash, or the actual block hash, so we can just check everything is working pretty much fine. For this one, it's gonna be required to true, and obviously it's gonna take the same thing in here. So I'm just gonna copy paste it very quick. And that's it. So as I've told you, the hash of the current block, this particular block that's being added to the database, is completely optional, so you don't really require to do this, but we did it anyway. Now, the other thing, we need to export and compile the actual schema into a model. So I'm going to say export or modular exports equals mongoose.compile, or model, actually not compile. This is going to allow us to create and compile the schema to a model, and I'm going to need to give it a name. So I'm going to call it a blockchain, and obviously here we need to give it the blockchain schema. So blockchain schema, and that's it. So here should everything be working pretty much fine. Now let's go to the index. For the index, let's first go ahead connect to database. So here we need to connect to the database, obviously. Let me just go ahead and require the Mongoose. Obviously, we're going to need to use the Mongoose, or require it at least. So, okay, we've got that. Now, connecting to the database, we're just going to need to call the mongoose.connect. For the connecting purposes, you need to give it a URL, and for the URL, I'm going to say it has a specific thing. It's not in HTTP or something, so you need to type Mongodb, and you're going to need to say localhost 2701, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. This is the port it works on, and obviously, I'm going to just say, I don't know. Well, let's just go ahead and say BlockChain pretty quick. So, the database names, this is it. And here it's gonna give us a callback with an error if there's any error happening or something. I'm gonna check if error, return console.log cannot connect to database. And obviously, if anything else, I'm just gonna console.log database is connected. Okay. Very quick, very fine. This is just was for connecting to the database very quickly. And yeah, that should be it. Now, let me just go ahead and show you that we're going to need to use a callback, so we would know that the database is connected, so we can just go ahead and start mining. Because if the database isn't connected yet, and we started creating or mining new blocks, and just saving them to do a non-connected database is just gonna cause us an error. So we don't want this. We want to callback get executed once the database has been successfully connected, so we can just go ahead and carry on with our block mining and adding it to the chain and saving it in the database and so on and so forth. So here I'm gonna modulo.export export a new function. I'm gonna say on connect. This is just gonna be like a callback. So this one, it takes a callback as a parameter. So this is gonna be a callback, as I told you, and it's a function already. And I'm gonna say here, let's connection callback, and this is gonna equal null for the first time, or just I'm gonna say it's to an empty arrow function. And here, whenever you're on connects, I'm just going to say connection callback equals to the callbacks that we are going to specify later on from the other module. It's going to be set in here and called once in here. And here, I'm going to simply call the connection callback once the database is successfully connected. So this is all we're going to need to do. One another thing that we are missing is actually compiling the modules and calling all of them in here. So we have to require this. I'm going to require BlockChain model equals require, and require it. Just gonna go to the model, and well, yeah, it's in the right place. Now here, just gonna call this, gonna compile the schema and make the model ready for us. Now going back to the blockchain, as I've told you before, and here into the main.js, we have the proof of work and we have everything in here. I'm just gonna keep it for now, and I'm gonna go ahead and connect to the database and call the actual database over here before calling the blockchain, and actually before initiating anything like this. So here I'm gonna call database equals require, and we're gonna need to require the database thing, which is the index. So once we go to the src/database, we don't need to specify the index. While we can, but we don't need, because it's just gonna automatically look for the index and import it for us or require it for us. And here, let's go ahead and set the callback, this callback that we were talking about. So on connect, I'm going to run the whole thing. So remember, when we connect, we can just do a hell of a lot of things. We can start mining, we can connect, or we can start saving data to the database, and so on and so forth. So this is what we want. We don't want any errors or something happening before the database or the actual database connection. So here afterwards, we can go ahead into the actual block, and here we can actually let the database, or we can now, after making sure that the block is working and everything, we can just go ahead and add it to the database. Now once you install, make sure to go ahead and install Mongodb. Make sure everything is working pretty much fine for you for the installing. You're gonna need to require the campus, the MongoDB campus community, which is a GUI or a GUI software, just to show you, to let you manage your database with a really nice interface. So I'm just gonna let you know what I'm going to do with this really nice interface. As you can see here for the model, we should probably, like, everything should work pretty much fine. Let's just go ahead. Once the proof of work is working pretty much fine, let me just go ahead and, like, you know, require the actual Mongoose or require the model that we need, because when we need to save something to the database, we need the actual model that we have created using the schema. So let me just go ahead and call this blockchain model equals, and I'm gonna require it very quick, which is gonna be on the database / or I'm totally done. So we don't need to do this. What we can do is just gonna use the Mongoose modulo to require the actual. So once we register the model, it's gonna be like registered on an array or something on the Mongoose object. So we can just go ahead and clearly grab it off. So here, let me just go with the Mongoose, and here I'm gonna say Mongoose dot. Well, I'm gonna say model, and just by specifying the model name, which is the blockchain that we have already created, it's just gonna, like, return to us the actual model right here. So you can see the type of this is a MongoDB model. Now let's go ahead and create a new instance for this one. So let's new blockchain or new block equals new blockchain. Okay, blockchain model. And here, remember, whenever we create an instance, it needs the actual data that we have got in here, that we have specified on the schema. It needs the index, the timestamp, the transactions, the previous hash, and the hash. So we're going to need to provide this using this .last block, or the actual block, not the last block or something. The block that we have created in here, it has the index, the timestamp, the transaction, the previous hash, but what it doesn't have is the actual hash. So let's go ahead. Once the proof of work is working, I'm going to say block.hash equals hashing the actual block. So yeah, because fair enough. So we can add a new property in here, the hash property to the same block after hashing it. So yeah, it's pretty simple over there. Now after making all of different things in here, I'm gonna say new block, and I need to save this data to the database using the save method. The save method pretty much takes a function, and it's just gonna be like an error or something. If there is any error happens, it's just gonna tell you that there is an error. So we first need to check if there is any error. What we're gonna need to do is just like return console.log, and I'm gonna use in here, in this case, I'm gonna use the shulk library. So shulk equals require shulk, very quick. Now let's just go ahead and do this very quickly in here. As I've told you, that we need to require the shulk, and for the shulk to use it is quite simple and quite basic. So we're gonna call the shulk, and then you give it whatever color. I'm just gonna say, since it's error, I'm gonna say red, and here you give it the text that you're gonna need to display in red. Cannot save block to database, and obviously I'm just gonna give it the actual error.message. Fair enough. Otherwise, I'm just gonna console log using shulk. Of course, I'm gonna use the green to make sure that it's actually a success. Block save it on the database. Fair enough. Okay. Here we have saved everything, and everything should be much working fine. After saving it, what we need is just go ahead and push it on the actual database and stuff. And yeah, we don't need to do this or something, because it doesn't really need to. So I'm just gonna copy this, make it enter the actual statement that are over there, just to double check that everything is working pretty much fine. And here, as you can see, we've got our GUI or GUI, the campus thing. Now, the last thing we're going to need to do in order to work with the MongoDB is actually run the server. So make sure to go ahead and run or install the MongoDB. If you haven't already, just go ahead and type MongoDB, or as I've told you before, go to the tutorial and just go to the MongoDB here, go to the download center, which is right over here. And you can probably just go ahead and install this very quickly if you have Windows, Linux, or whatever. As you can see, community server. Enterprise server, just select the community, select whatever version from here, and yeah, you should be able to do this. So going over here, let me just quickly close that. And to run the server, as I've told you, let me go ahead and create a new terminal for running the server. Make sure to cd or go to the actual directory that you've installed the MongoDB server on. In my case, I did install it on the C drive, and on the C drive, I'm just gonna run the Mongodb. So this command doesn't work for you. Just go ahead, look for the actual executable file for the MongoDB, whatever you have installed, and run it manually. Just double click it, or open up command line prompt and run this, or open up your bash terminal and run it. As you can see, it's 27017 instead of the actual thing that we did. Let me just go ahead and use the port. I totally typed in the right ports, and here it should work pretty much fine. So afterwards, let me just go ahead and run the MongoDB very quick. On the main.js, I probably think, well, let me just go ahead and do this quickly. Yeah, I think we're actually doing this right with no problems or something. Let me just go ahead and comment this out, and to double check that the MongoDB is actually connecting to the database and stuff. So I'm gonna say node main.js, just running the main, or running the node executable. As you can see, database connected, the chain is empty. So we have the database connected, everything is working pretty much fine, we've got no errors, and we can proceed with our code. So that means everything is on the right place. So go back to the blockchain in here, and I think we are doing actually everything in the best way in here. So the validate your proof of work, we are just generating that, and we have the actual target hash up there, which is doing everything pretty fine. So let's just go ahead and try to see what is actually happening, if this work, or if this block of code is gonna work or something. Let me just go and call the actual blockchain that we have created, the instance that we created up here, remember? So I'm gonna call blockchain, and I'm gonna say dot add a new block, or add a new transaction, I don't know, Islam or something. Remember the last transaction we have that did Alex and 200 whatever, and I'm gonna say blockchain dot add a new block, and in adding a new block it needs the actual previous hash. So for this one, since it's the first block, for testing purposes, I'm just gonna give it null because there's no previous hash, because we need actually for the previous hash whenever we need to use a database on a blockchain. So we need to go ahead, fetch from the database the last block added, we grab the hash of the last block added, and we grab that and we set it as the previous hash for the new block that we want to add. So fair enough. For now, let's go ahead and see it like this, and we can now go to the node main.js, and it should probably I don't know, it should work fine here with no problems. I think now it's mining, but it doesn't show anything, or the database is connecting. Once the database is connected, well, valid proof is not defined. Okay, let me just go ahead and see what is it. I think the problem is whenever you change it, it says the valid proof, this one is not defined, because we need to go ahead and access it through the modules. So export the valid proof, and we can actually access this with no problem. So let me just go ahead and exit this again. We run it again one more time, and we see what is actually happening. So if there will be any valid proof or something. Okay, it might take some time because, I don't know, the database connection is a little bit laggy in here, but the proof is not defined right now. Which proof is not defined? Well, hashing the proof, which we're gonna need to, okay, here we need to like pass in the proof. This is totally my bad, but let me just go ahead and quickly pass this. There's gonna be a proof, and here I'm gonna say targets hash, or we'll just go ahead and call it proof with no problems. We're gonna pass in the proof, or well, this is the gas hash, or this is the actual proof. Yeah, so here I'm gonna call this target hash. Yeah, because this is totally dumb from my side, and well, I think this won't work because we're gonna need to go ahead and provide the actual proof right over here. Let me just quickly do this. I'm gonna say target hash equals, I don't know which number we was using. It's 1560. Okay, 1560 is gonna be our target hash. I'm gonna just quickly grab the target hash here. I'm just gonna put it up there, and here get rid of that, get rid of this, clear that again, and run it one more time, and we should be able to get that running with no problems. So as far as I can tell, this should work pretty much fine with no problem. For the node main.js, it should run by just connecting to the database. As I've told you, the server, the MongoDB, when you run it on a local host, it might take some problems, like sometimes it couldn't connect or something, sometimes it takes some time like this. Right now getting proof is not defined. Well, I think the proof, we need to get the proof from up here. Well, yeah, I told you, it's my bad. We run that again, so hopefully now it should work pretty much fine. As you can see, hashing, but actually we're not getting any database saving or something. Now also make sure to go ahead and on the target hash up there, make sure to use the hash function to hash the number that we are using, because whenever we're checking in here, we're checking against a hash. So we wanted to actually checking against the hash. So make sure to go ahead and add the hash function and also make sure to hash the number into an actual hash, and everything should look pretty much fine. And also another thing, make sure to go ahead and change the whenever we try to create the instance of the model from this dot block, it was put in here mistakenly, mistypes this dot block, so make sure to just put it the block because we mean the actual block that we created under the add a new block function scope. Now adding all of those, let's go ahead and run this one more time, and we should probably get something running. And as you can see, hashing, and finally we get all the block, we get the chain, actually new block added to the chain with all the hash and different things, and we get block saved on the database with no problems. Now if we can take a look in here, I don't know, refresh something in here. As you can see, where's the database? We named it probably BlockChain, as you can see. So we click that, we get BlockChains, which is the actual collection, and it has two documents because I've tried it before with a video. But as you can see, if you can take a look, which is the same thing. So it has the transactions, it has a timestamp, it has an index, previous hash, which is null because this is the first hash. Don't just take or mention this one at all, and it has a hash and all different things. So what we want in the next tutorial, though, that was actually for this tutorial, I don't want to make this long or something. In the next one, we're going to create more advanced topic. I'm going to take this in a bit higher level. We're gonna take the add a new block for the also proof of work. We're gonna make it a little bit harder, and obviously we're just gonna go ahead and link the previous hash. Whenever we try to add a new block, we first check the database. If there is any blocks added already into the database, we grab the last one, we hash this block, and we use this hash into the actual new block that we want to add for setting the previous hash attributes and so on and so forth. So hopefully you could guys stay with me all of this tutorial. I was just trying to make that for you for the MongoDB and how you can just integrate it with the blockchain example that we created the last time, since a lot of people requested it and all different things. So that was actually guys today's tutorial. Hopefully you have enjoyed, and don't just forget about the thumbs up button, subscribe, why not share it with your friends and all of your different guys that likes blockchains and likes coding that much as you do. And hopefully guys, I will catch you on the next part where we're just gonna go ahead and complete the blockchain. So see you all guys in the next one.